Hi, the purpose of this video is to walk you through one of the assignments for this week, and that is reflection, homeschool connection. So the purpose of this assignment is to help you think about yourself, because as you learned in the readings this week, an important part of understanding and accepting differences in others is to understand who you are and what makes you, what culture you feel connected to, and the cultural things that you celebrate and identify with, and realizing when things are part of your own culture, you can then realize that differences might be part of someone else's culture and help you be more sensitive to and aware of those. So as this says, this assignment will help make future learning and assignments in this course even more meaningful for you, because you'll be coming from oh, well, I do this because of my culture, or this because of the way I was brought up. So you can think about those things and then think, well, this family probably does this because of their culture, and then hopefully learn that from the family themselves. So in order to recognize and value other cultures, it's important that teachers have a foundation of personal understanding of their own values and uniqueness. So you're going to reflect first. The following quote and list are from the book by Janet Gonzalez Mania, Diversity in Early Care and Education, Honoring Differences. And this is from page 9. She writes, as a white middle-class American with mostly Anglo-Saxon and Celtic heritage, she says that her Spanish surname comes from her husband, I was surprised to discover that I do have a culture. I, like everyone else, move within a cultural framework every minute of every day. That framework is influenced by and includes what are called attributes of culture, some of which I am extremely conscious of, but some of which I am barely aware of. My life is influenced by my race, gender, age, abilities and disabilities, language, social class, including status and economic level, ethnicity and national origin, religion and or spiritual practice, original geographic location of my family, where I grew up, and my present location if they're different, and sexuality, including sexual orientation. And I think I can make arguments for why all of these in ways do mold who we are. Some of them it might not seem very much so at first, but I just think they are. Even abilities and disabilities. Well, if you don't have any disabilities, you might think that's not really a big one, but if you're a healthy bodied person, that does influence who you are, because it means that you can do things that some other people can't. It might mean that you take for granted and don't realize how privileged you are to have a healthy body. Language, obviously, I think that one's probably pretty obvious, but social class, including status and economic level. And I mean, I think that influences who we are, whether we're rich or poor or somewhere in between. It influences us in different ways, but there are influences because of it. You might not think that your religion or spiritual practice does if you don't have one, but that's influencing something, I would think. But maybe that'll be something that you'll take off your list when we get to it. Sorry. Let's see. Your geographic location, you hear differences about different regions of the country all the time, and how the people there act and their norms and things like that. And then you can break it down even further than that. It doesn't have to be about regions of the country. It can be about regions of a state, different sides of town, right? Especially, I grew up in a city, and there was the south side and the north side, and things were different depending on where in the city people grew up, and in different neighborhoods. And so that is influencing of us. Around here, we've got a lot of small towns, and each little small town has its own culture to an extent. So culture comes from all kinds of places. You often hear about workplace culture because different workplaces do have different cultures, and that can be intentional, and people can strive really hard to create a positive workplace culture, or one person can influence culture in a workplace, as we sometimes see, unfortunately, if it's negative. So, schools have culture, workplaces have culture. There's culture in all different, the culture of different groups of people all the time. So things that have affected you in that way. And then your sexuality, including your sexual orientation. I mean, even if that you're heterosexual, that has influenced you in the fact that you married a person of the opposite sex and might have a more traditional family than some others. So it is influencing you. These are just things to consider, and they're the things that she has deemed for her. So I stopped too early. Let me keep reading her quote. Her quote continues, "My framework influences the way I think and act and how I perceive, handle, and interact with people and materials. It determines my notions of time and space and even influences my behaviors related to those notions." So what you're going to do, the first thing you're going to do on your document you answer this on, is make your own list. It says, read the list in the table of how the author's life is influenced. Thoughtfully create your own list. You may use some of the same items she did. You may add or remove some. Maybe you want to keep yours exactly the same. That's all fine. You can do it however you like, but you need to have, we'll get to that, sorry. In your answer document, type out your list. Next to each item, explain in detail why it's on your list. As you explain, you might consider the following. In what ways does each item involve culture for you? Is the item influenced by your culture, or maybe it's the other way around? How does this item make you who you are? What does your culture say about this thing that's on the list? Is this item there because it puts you in a specific culture? And if so, how so? So these are just things to consider. You don't have to answer each of those questions individually, but you put each item on your list for a reason. How do they pertain? So my next bullet says, remember, you may decide to keep your list exactly as the one above, change items, add or remove items, etc. She has 10 items, and I'd like you to also have 10 items with explanation. Now, did anything that you decided to put on your list surprise you? If so, what and why? So sometimes I see answers to that question that are, oh, nothing surprised me, otherwise it wouldn't be on my list. But that's not necessarily true, because maybe there are things that you saw on her list that were like, well, I never thought about that before, but it's true. So something like that. So when you answer questions like this is throughout your child development career, your child development career at Western, as you're taking classes. I don't want you to just find it, put on the answer document, yes, because, or no, because. You need to rewrite the question within your answer. So you could say something like, I was surprised that I included whatever, because I hadn't really thought about it before, and then go on. Okay, but you need to rephrase questions in your answers. Your third question is there anything on your list that you think makes you diverse from those whom you are usually around? So just anything on your list that you think separates you from either others in your culture or others that in your friend group or at work, but or in your town, just makes you different somehow. Then you're going to watch this video that about supporting children's learning and identity development by valuing each child's culture and home life. After you watch it, you're going to consider these responses that you gave in the questions above, and you're going to think of yourself as a little 3 or 4-year-old child entering your classroom or the classroom where you're doing your field work. Would you feel recognized and included in this classroom? Would what makes you, you, and your culture and your background and your uniquenesses, would you feel like you were seen in this classroom? And elaborate on what ways. It says, in what ways would you? It doesn't just say do you or don't you. It says, in what ways would you feel recognized? So list some. Hopefully, if there aren't any, you're going to have to be honest about that. Which the next question goes to, in what ways would you not feel that you or your culture were recognized? What could be done better in your setting to be more inclusive of you as a 3 or 4-year-old? Or maybe you realize that you're recognized, but this has made you realize that maybe some other cultures or identities aren't recognized. So how could that be done? And this doesn't have to be, and hopefully you'll learn this through this class, this doesn't have to be you walk in the room and you see, I don't know, something from a specific culture represented. It doesn't have to be, in your face all the time, but there need to be books that represent different children of differing cultures and differing abilities. There need to be activities that acknowledge differences, and pictures of children on the wall that look like children in your classroom look, things like that. So be sure to check the grading rubric. It's right here to make sure that you're getting all the points. And then it says the assigned textbook reading for this module and other videos posted in the module can guide you as you reflect on the questions above, and you should make specific reference to things you learned from reading or watching within your answers. So, as always, reach out if you have any questions. That is literally what I am here for. I hope you enjoy doing this assignment and thinking about you and your childhood and your upbringing and your current life situation, and just really thinking about who makes you who you or what makes you who you are.